I've never been the paranoid type, but what happened that day was just strange. It was a hot afternoon, hotter than usual, and I was walking through the city, going from point A to point B like any other day. The city was calm, almost deserted, which felt a little off. The wind wasn't helping much, and the dust from the dry streets seemed to be everywhere. I was feeling uncomfortable, but tried to brush off the feeling. Still, something just didn't seem right. When I turned the corner of the street I always walked down, that's when I started to feel it. It was like someone was right behind me, but I didn't hear footsteps, I didn't see anything. Just the wind and my own boots hitting the ground. The worst part was the feeling, like there was someone else there. For a few seconds, my mind tried to rationalize it, telling me it was probably just the echo of my own steps. But the more I walked, the worse it got. I started walking faster, trying to shake the unease off. That's when I turned around. I saw the footprints. I don't know how to explain it, but they were there, clear as day, marked in the dry dust covering the street. They were big footprints, and the strangest part was that they appeared at the exact moment I was looking at them. As if someone was there, but there wasn't. There was no one else on the street, no cars, no people. Just those footprints, like someone was following me, but I was completely alone. I looked around, almost expecting to see someone, but saw nothing except the empty street. I started walking toward the footprints, and with every step I took, they formed, mimicking my movements. The feeling of being watched grew stronger. The air felt denser, like something was pressing down on my shoulders. I wanted to run, but my legs felt heavy, like something was holding me back. I looked up at the sky, trying to find some logical explanation, anything that made sense. But all I saw was a clear sky, no clouds. The footprints kept appearing, and with them, the feeling that something was about to happen. Fear started to take over in a way I couldn't control. I wanted to scream, but my throat felt tight. My hands started sweating, and I quickened my pace. The street felt more and more silent, empty, and I felt like I was the only person alive there. Every time the footprints appeared, a sense of dread would take over me, and I didn't know what to do. All I knew was that I was being followed, but I couldn't see who or what was behind me. It was like the environment was becoming more oppressive by the second. And with every step, more footprints would show up, like the space between me and whatever was following me was closing in. I reached a point where, without thinking, I started running. But it didn't help. The feeling of being chased didn't go away, and the footprints kept appearing, faster, closer. It was like someone was catching up with me with every step I took, but I couldn't see anyone. I didn't know where I was going. I just wanted to get away, to flee from whatever was following me. When I looked back for a moment, I saw that the footprints were closer than ever, and fear gripped me like a wave. I sped up even more, looking around for a place to hide. That's when I spotted a door ahead, a store that was open, and without thinking, I ran to it. I entered, almost out of breath, and the door slammed shut behind me with a bang. I was inside a safe place, or so I thought. Inside, the sounds of the city seemed distant, like I had stepped out of a nightmare and into some kind of refuge. But the feeling of being followed didn't go away. I wasn't in the street anymore, but it was still with me. I stayed there for a few minutes, trying to figure out what was going on. I looked through the glass door, expecting to see someone walk by or any sign that this was real. But nothing. Everything was calm. I couldn't understand it. How is it possible that something so simple, like footprints appearing out of nowhere, could make me feel so terrified? How could I explain that? Maybe it was just a trick of my mind, some kind of hallucination from the heat or exhaustion. But deep down I knew it wasn't. Something was wrong, and I could feel that I wasn't alone. I couldn't shake off the feeling, even inside the store. The room was small, poorly lit, and the air smelled of dust. It was a quiet place, the kind of store you don't really notice unless you're specifically looking for it. I glanced around, trying to distract myself from the unease creeping up on me. But no matter how much I tried to focus on the shelves, the weird sensation of being watched lingered. Every noise, every small creak of the old building, made my heart race. I couldn't tell if it was paranoia or if something was genuinely there, but I felt as though I wasn't alone anymore. I told myself it was just the adrenaline from the sprint, that my body was still wired from the rush. But deep inside, I knew it was more than that. The hairs on the back of my neck stood up, and it was as if every muscle in my body was telling me to leave. I glanced back at the door, almost expecting to see it open on its own, or worse, someone on the other side. But nothing happened. No footsteps, no sounds. Just the oppressive silence of the store. I had to get out, but the fear that gripped me made it feel impossible to move. The air in the store felt thick, almost suffocating. I moved slowly toward the front door, trying to get a better look outside without making too much noise. I peered through the dusty glass, scanning the street. There was nothing unusual, just the empty sidewalk. But something about the stillness made it worse. It was as if the world was holding its breath, waiting for something to happen. My eyes kept darting back to the street, expecting to see someone, or something, emerge from the shadows. But there was nothing, only the quiet. I stepped back from the window, still too shaken to leave. My hands were clammy, and my legs felt unsteady. I kept telling myself it was time to leave, that I had been overthinking everything. But just as I turned to leave, I heard it. A sound, faint at first, but unmistakable, footsteps. It wasn't the sound of my own steps echoing back, like I had hoped. No, these were slow, deliberate footsteps, as though someone was walking towards me. The noise was coming from the back of the store, from the direction I had been avoiding. My heart skipped a beat, and I froze. I hadn't heard anyone enter the store. No bell above the door had rung. The footsteps continued, slow and deliberate, and they were getting closer. I felt the blood drain from my face, my stomach twisting in knots. I glanced toward the back again, and I swear, for a split second, I saw a shadow move across the floor. My breathing quickened, and my thoughts raced. I had to be imagining it, right? There was no one there. But those footsteps didn't stop. I backed away from the counter, trying to keep my composure. The footsteps were right behind me now, closer than before. I spun around, half expecting to see someone standing there, but no one was in sight. I stood still for a moment, waiting, listening. But nothing. No more footsteps. Just silence. My heart was pounding in my chest, and I felt dizzy like I was about to pass out. What the hell was going on? Who was following me? Or was it all in my head? I wasn't sure anymore. I looked at the door again, but this time, I didn't feel safe there. The sense of being watched had returned, stronger than before. It was as if the walls were closing in on me. I needed to leave, but my legs felt like they were made of lead. I took a step toward the door, but the moment I did, I heard it again, the soft shuffle of footsteps behind me. But when I looked, no one was there. I tried to ignore it, telling myself that I was just scared, but deep down, I knew it wasn't just fear. There was something there. Suddenly, the lights in the store flickered, briefly plunging everything into darkness. My heart nearly stopped. The fear that gripped me was unlike anything I had ever experienced. I stood frozen, my body trembling, my mind racing. I knew I couldn't stay here much longer. The fear wasn't just in my head anymore. It was real. It felt like something was closing in on me, something I couldn't see, but could feel every moment. The sensation of being followed was overwhelming. Before I could react, the lights flickered back on. And in the brief moment of darkness, something had changed. I wasn't alone. I could feel it in the air, a presence right behind me. I didn't turn around. I didn't need to. I could feel it closing in, the weight of it pressing down on me. Every instinct in my body screamed for me to run, to get out of there as fast as possible. But I couldn't move. My feet were rooted to the spot. I couldn't bring myself to move. My feet felt like they were cemented to the floor, and my body was frozen with fear. The presence behind me was unbearable, but I dared not look. The silence was maddening, stretching on for what felt like an eternity. Every second seemed to drag, and every breath I took felt heavier than the last. The room was suffocating, and I could feel the weight of the unseen figure bearing down on me. I had to leave. I had to get out, but my legs refused to cooperate. And then I heard it. A low, guttural whisper, too soft for words but unmistakable. It came from directly behind me. My heart skipped a beat, and I felt a cold chill run down my spine. I wasn't imagining it. There was something there, something that had been following me, and now it was right next to me. I could feel its presence, as though it was inches away, its breath cold against the back of my neck. I held my breath, hoping that somehow it wouldn't notice me, that it wouldn't realize how terrified I was. But I knew that was wishful thinking. I forced myself to take a step forward, then another, but the moment I moved, I heard it again, the faint sound of footsteps, keeping pace with mine. No matter how fast I walked, it was always right behind me. I could feel it, the weight of its gaze, even though I never saw it. My pulse raced, and I could hear my own breath coming in ragged gasps. I glanced over my shoulder, but the store was still empty. Nothing. Yet the sensation of being followed was stronger than ever. It was closing in on me, no longer trying to hide. With every step I took, the footsteps seemed to grow louder, closer, until they were right next to me. I turned around again, and there was still no one there. but the air around me was thick with something I couldn't explain. It felt heavy, oppressive, as though the very atmosphere in the room was pushing in on me. I stumbled backward, and that's when I felt it. A cold hand brushed against my arm. I screamed and whirled around, but once again there was nothing there. I couldn't take it anymore. The fear had consumed me. I bolted for the door. My body was moving on its own, and I didn't care how fast I was going. I just had to get out of there. I reached for the doorknob, but it wouldn't turn. I yanked at it, desperate to escape, but it felt as though something was holding it shut from the other side. I couldn't breathe. My head was spinning, and my chest felt tight. It was as if the walls were closing in on me, trapping me in this nightmare. I turned to look around the room, but the oppressive presence was everywhere. It was suffocating. I took a step back, my heart pounding in my chest, and that's when I saw it. A figure in the corner of the room, barely visible in the shadows. I could only make out the outline of a person, standing still and unmoving. My breath caught in my throat. The footsteps, the whispering, the cold touch, it had all led to this moment. The figure was watching me. I couldn't see its face, but I knew it was there. It was real. It was waiting. I tried again to open the door, but it was useless. My hands were shaking so badly that I couldn't grip the doorknob properly. I was trapped. The figure in the corner was getting closer, but still it didn't move. It just stood there watching me. I could feel its eyes on me, even though I couldn't see them. My skin crawled. The room was spinning, and my head felt light. I didn't know what to do anymore. I didn't know how much longer I could take it. The terror was consuming me. My mind was racing, trying to find a way out, but all I could hear was my own panicked breathing. Suddenly, everything went quiet. The footsteps stopped. The whispering ceased. I felt the air shift, and for the first time in what felt like hours, I didn't feel the presence anymore. I took a deep breath, unsure if it was safe to move. I turned around to look at the door again, and this time it opened. Slowly, as though the store had finally released me from its grip. I didn't question it. I didn't care why or how. I bolted out of there faster than I ever had in my life. I didn't stop until I was outside, standing in the middle of the street, gasping for air. I don't know what happened that day. I don't know why I felt like I was being followed, why I could hear the footsteps, or why the figure in the corner appeared. But one thing I do know, something was there. And it was real. I haven't gone back to that store since. I don't even walk down that street anymore. The fear is still with me, and I don't think I'll ever be able to explain what happened. I just know that I'll never forget the feeling of being followed, knowing that something was there, even if I couldn't see it.